Hello guys and welcome back to Mossy Maths GCSE. Today we're going to be going through the third lesson on the topic of trigonometry, which looks at graphs of sin x, cos x and tan x. Now, those of you that have watched the previous lessons will know that this topic usually uses a calculator. However, this lesson could appear in a non-calculator exam. And the reason is because we work out solutions graphically. Now, we'll be given a graph on a grid and we might be told to solve, for example, sin x is 0.5 or cos x is 7.5 etc. So the key is to try and memorise these three graphs. Now we're going to learn them between minus 360 degrees and positive 360 degrees. So to start with, let's look at sin x. Well, what happens is a graph starts at the origin, it increases up to 1 on the y-axis, which is 90 degrees on the x. It then decreases to 0 on the y-axis, 180 on the x-axis. It then continues to decrease to 270 degrees at minus 1 on the y-axis, and then back to 360 degrees, which is 0 on the y-axis. Now, this is a periodic graph. Now, what I mean by that is it will continue forever. So it will go up to there, down to there, up to there, down to there, and so on and so on. So effectively at 360 degrees, the graph is starting again from 0. It will go up, then it will go down, then back up. And if you look in the negative direction, it's just a reflection in the x-axis. Where it's 90 degrees and positive 1 here, it's minus 90 degrees and minus 1 here. And again, this will continue to minus infinity. Now, if we look at a question with this, the first one says solve sin x as a half. Well, we're told to do this in the interval 0 degrees to 180 degrees, so x is between those two values. Well, the first thing to do is to think, well, if sin x is 0.5, let's take 0.5 on the y-axis, which is going to be there, okay? And let's draw a line all the way across the graph horizontally. Now, if we're looking between the interval 0 and 180 degrees, we're actually looking between these 2 points here. Now, of course, the line does cross the graph here and here, as well as it will continuously as the graph goes in that direction. There's going to be an infinite number of solutions, that means. However, we're told between these two values, so the only two solutions between 0 and 180 are there. So what we'd do is we'd draw a line then down to the x-axis and read off the value. That's why we don't need a calculator. Of course, I don't have a grid here, but in your exam you'll be given paper with a grid on it, so you'll be able to easily read off the value on the x-axis. Well, sin 30 is a half, so we should know that one solution is going to be 30 degrees. That's one we should memorise. To work out the other solution, we just read off this value, which happens to be 150 degrees. It's just 30 degrees off 180. So they're the two solutions. The next question says solve sin x is minus a half in the interval 0 to 180. Well, minus a half is here, and we're looking between 0 and 180. Well, between those two values there are no solutions. It's a trick question. Because the graph does intercept here, here, here and here. Well, these aren't between 0 and 180 degrees, and these are greater than 180 degrees, so none are actually in that interval. The second one is cos of x. It looks very similar to the sine graph. The only difference is it starts at x is 0 degrees when y is 1. Hence why cos 0 is 1. The graph starts here, it decreases to 90 degrees where it's 0 on the y-axis. Then at minus 1 on the y-axis, it reaches 180 degrees on the x. Back to 0 at 270 degrees, then back to positive 1 at 360 degrees, and so on and so on. Again, this is a periodic graph, so it will repeat forever in both directions. Now, this is actually a reflection in the y-axis in the negative direction. As you can see, the graphs are exactly the same points, just reflected in the y-axis. Solve cos x is 0.75 for values of x between minus 90 degrees and 360 degrees. Okay, so what we'd do is we'd go up to 0.75 and once again draw a horizontal line between the two. Now, having done that, we can work out the values. Now, it happens to be that the values are going to be this one here, because this is greater than minus 90, so it falls in this interval. we have this one here. We also have one answer there. So we have three solutions, and the solutions are minus 41.4 degrees, 41.4 degrees, positive, and 318.6 degrees. Now, of course, you're not expected to just know that. Again, what you'd have to do is draw a line down to the x-axis from each of these values, and then just read off the value on the x-axis, which will be these values here. Now, I have cheated and used my calculator. That's because I don't have a grid here, but like I said in the exam, you will be given a grid, so you'll be able to read off the values quite easily. Second one, find cos 45. Well, cos 45 again is one we should know. Cos 45 is 1 over root 2. Graphically, the way we'd solve this is we'd look for 45 degrees on the x-axis, which is there, draw a line up to the graph, and then read off the value on the y-axis. In many ways the opposite of what we've been doing before. And finally, the tan graph, tan x. Now this is a weird graph. It's weird because it goes between minus 360 and 360 degrees, and it is periodic. The difference is it's periodic between every 180 degrees. For example, we have this shape here, every 180 degrees. And what you'll notice is these dotted lines. Now these are what we call asymptotes. Now you don't necessarily need to know that for GCSE, however it's a good thing to know for A level if you're considering taking it at that level. Asymptote just means that the graph will tend towards that value, but it will never actually touch it physically. For example, this point here will go to positive infinity on the y-axis, but it will never touch 90 degrees. Hence why if you try typing in tan 90 on your calculator, you'll get undefined or error. So actually this question here where it says find tan 90, we say it's undefined. That's because the graph never actually reaches 90 degrees. It tends towards it forever, but it never actually reaches it. It's an asymptote. The first one though says solve tan x is 1 for the interval minus 180 and positive 180. So what we do here is we go across at 1 and read off the values, of which there are 2, minus 135 degrees and 45 degrees. So there are answers for that one. And again, the same thing, you just draw a line down to the x-axis and read off the value here, and they're your solutions. And again, it's between minus 180 and positive 180, so we're only looking at these values in between here. There will be solutions in both directions, but again, there's an infinite number of solutions, so it's important we look at the interval. So thanks a lot for watching the video. That's the third lesson on trigonometry. So we've covered the graphs, and in the next lesson we'll be looking at the sine and cosine rules, and the final lesson we'll look at how we can work out the area of a non-right angled triangle. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe to my channel. If you found the video helpful, please leave a like. If you have anything to ask at all, just leave it in the comments section, and I'll try and get back to you as quick as I can with a response. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you in lesson 4 on trigonometry.